Next, we're really proud to present Liz Cole-Camp in the second episode of the Yew Tree Chronicles, a fanciful history of Tisbury seen through the eyes of our ancient yew tree in St John's Churchyard.
Time marched on and the Romans marched in. Get it? Oh, I've waited eons to say that. God, I'm hilarious. Who knew a yew tree could have such humour as well as good looks? Anyway, yes, they arrived. And by this time, this neck of the woods was becoming quite popular with the Durotrigians. There were huts to live in, vegetables sowed, a forge of sorts, various gods of various things worshipped, everything modern Durotrigian man could need. And they were an okay lot, not always living in harmony with each other, mind you, who does, but definitely at one with nature, which, being on the nature side of the fence, I did appreciate. This time they were making much admired jewellery from the locally found precious pink coral, and the leaders, which I watched come and go, because of course I outlived everyone, wore lots of shiny things on their wrists and around their necks. In fact, I heard a long conversation one day about someone burying their treasure, probably because they heard the Romans were on their way, who wouldn't? And do you know what? It would be another 2,000 years or more before I heard someone had actually found it. I digress. The Romans, well, what a bunch they were. Like nothing I, or obviously the locals, had ever seen before. First thing you notice, they were all dressed the same. Lots of leather. Skirts a little short for my liking, and lots of metalware. And what marching! It was impressively in sync and very noisy. Let me tell you, you knew they were coming, when they were coming, long before you saw them, and it scared the living daylights out of everyone. There was talk of resistance, but honestly, once you laid eyes on them, all thought of resistance went down the Nadder. That was another joke. Those spears, those shields and swords, absolutely terrifying. I was very worried that they would not recognise my importance and see me as a fuel for the campfire, so to speak. Thankfully, they recognised straight away my beauty and grace, and that the locals were very fond of me. The Romans were not stupid, you know. They were more than happy after a little brutality to let the locals carry on as they were, worshipping me, worshipping all their gods, and really, as far as I could see, they set about improving everyone's lives. For starters, they built things properly. Their architecture and interior design was second to none. Yes, and compared to what all the local tribes considered home, Roman ideas of what constituted comfort, well, there was just no comparing them. Mosaics, hot water, underfloor heating, baths. Just the idea of keeping clean was novel to your average Durotridge. In fact, they built villas dotted up through the Nadder Valley, and for around 400 years we really felt their presence. In that time, the local men joined their armies and the Romans married into the local population. After the initial shock, which lasted about 50 years, everyone just got used to them. Of course, they complained about the taxes they suddenly were expected to pay. And of course, the introduction of proper commerce and coins really threw a spanner in the works for a long time. But the roads the Romans built weren't to be laughed at, and the Durotriges were definitely deeply influenced. And perhaps sadly, their formerly somewhat smelly way of life gradually died out. Well, next week I'll tell you about how Christianity makes its mark. The Yew Tree Chronicles.